Mind if I ask something? Why do you think volunteering is important for, I guess, people like us, young people, or just adults, people in general?
Volunteering puts you with a group of people that have different standards, that have different beliefs, so you get some cross-pollination of ideas. And they have connections that you would not have been able to make if you hadn't known them. So you get different perspectives. And even though I love the Unitarian curriculum, especially the junior high one that I used to help teach, where you went out and visited all the different churches, and you got to hear and see what they did for a Sunday morning. The same sort of thing happens in an organization, how they do things, how they're successful, and if there are ideas that you can pick up there and bring back and share. And it broadens your horizons, meeting all the different kinds of people. But you also get a sense of you can make a difference. Even just one little thing that you do, you never know how that's going to blossom. And it may lead to you falling in love with that particular kind of activity, and you make it your life work. And you don't know now. You ask somebody, say, what would you like to do? What are you going to major in college? And you think, I don't know. But you may find it. And it may be helping out at the library because they need somebody to go through books or stack books or something. And you may end up being a librarian. Who knows? So it opens a lot of opportunities for you. Plus, they always need people to be gophers for one thing or another.
That's a great answer.
I'd like to add to that too. You have had a remarkable life, and you're still going so strong. And I'm wondering if being a volunteer has given you a sense of purpose in life that you think has been part of that strength that you draw on now.
Yeah. You wake up in the morning, you say, okay, open up the calendar. What are we doing today? and is there, if I'm not feeling well, which is very seldom, I'm remarkably healthy. People get colds and flu and all sorts of stuff, and maybe it's the vitamins and minerals I eat, but I don't get sick. And I belong to a senior Zumba class, and we dance at the fairgrounds out on the dance pad and do a demonstration. And the teacher always says, and here we have our young lady here. She's only 91, but and so I find that I'm a model for other people to do some of the things I do and to get involved with things that they hadn't thought about getting involved with. It's kind of fun.
Nice.
So here's a fun question I always like to ask people. What music were you into when you were a teen or 20 years old? Frank Sinatra?
No. I was a loner.
Okay.
I lived in Ames, Iowa when I was growing up. And there's the town of Ames, and then there's Iowa State University. They're separated.
Right.
And usually people who were connected with college lived out around the college area, and the people who were downtown, the townspeople, lived here. And I was different. My father was a teacher at the college, but we lived downtown. And so I didn't fit in with the clique that was down here, and I didn't fit in with the clique here. So I was a loner, and I spent a lot of time at the library, and I spent a lot of reading time. And as such, I lost my train of thought.
Music. Favorite music?
Music, okay.
Yeah.
Being by myself a lot, I listened to the radio. And I didn't get hooked on the musicians you're talking about. I fell in love with musical comedies.
Okay.
And I collected the words for them. And I've got a 3x5 manila thing that is chock full of 3x5 cards that have the words to these songs. And they were inspirational kinds of things. The Sound of Music, Climb Every Mountain, You'll Never Walk Alone, all of these things.
Sure.
So I entertain myself at times by pulling out one of these cards and seeing if I can still sing that song.
Wonderful.
It's fun. I'm not a good singer, but I love to sing.
To add on to that a little bit, do you think that because you didn't really find that you fit into major groups, that music was not an important part of your identity or your life, or that because you didn't fit in, that you found your own unique taste in music was an important part of your life?
Music was a part of my life because it opened me up to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And so, though I knew I was a loner in high school, I knew that going out to the college and going to school there, I didn't want to be in that same sort of thing. I knew that was a deficit that I had. So when I went to college, I joined the theater workshop and took part in plays.
Mm-hmm.
I was always backstage. I was caring for properties, etc. I was doing sound effects. And I also joined the radio workshop. And there we did kids' stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up taking the boys' part. Because I could get my voice down here. And I could talk, well, that's the way it is with us guys. And I could pull that off because nobody could see who was on the other end of the microphone. So I worked with those two groups, and that got me into a situation where I had to interact with other people. Mm-hmm. And it gave me an openness and a little bit more security because I was probably pretty insecure, mm-hmm. just floating around by myself. Right. So the music was an opener for both the radio station and the theater.
Awesome.
Yeah. Fun.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say your biggest regret is?
My biggest regret. That's kind of hard. It's not my regret. My regret is that my second husband, who was, as I say, the love of my life, ended up having a stroke. And after 9 years with him, I had to usher him through the last 2 years of his life. And he was sensitive to drugs, and as such, when they tried to control the grand mal seizures that he got as a result of the stroke, they would knock him out. He would do a grand mal seizure, and that would be every month. So he would go down, and I'd bring him back up, and it was just a stair step for 2 years. Taking care of a dying love, and that was hard.
Wow.
But then I had to sort of go through the same thing with Bill Tuttle too, because he had problems, mm-hmm. and I had to help him die. And those are regrets. I don't know if that fits the question, but sure. Those are the sad parts of my life there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is your biggest accomplishment?
I'd have to say getting this church started here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, I think it needed to be done, and I don't know, when I look back on the original meeting in our living room, I don't know of anybody there who had the guts to do something about it. And I was in that enviable position that I had the presidency down in Auburn, and I could work with them, and somehow I got the strength to oppose the minister and fight for what I wanted. And that would have to be it. Plus the fact that I had 4 kids mm-hmm. who all grew up, who all found professions or things that they could do, and none of them have ever been in jail. None of them
There you go.
They're pretty good kids. Yeah. They haven't all taken the angle I would like to take, but they've done well for themselves. So that's an accomplishment too.
Quick follow-up. So you rate the accomplishment of the church over, because I know you had a very successful store for a lot of years.
Oh, yeah.
That is huge.
That's challenge. My oldest daughter is a wonderful designer and sculptress, and she started doing dolls with a local fellow who he ended up doing masks, and she ended up doing the dolls. And I had moved up to Vallejo with Sam, my second husband. And she said, he's not going to make it. I've got a church over here for you. Come and join me. And then it opened up that I was working, we were pretty much making the dolls and shipping them to various places, people who found out about us. And I was shipping from the living room of a house out in Rough and Ready. And one of our representatives came in one day and said, you know, this could be a really nice display case for this sort of stuff. And my daughter heard her and said, okay. And the next week I'm sitting on the floor with these wooden racks and chicken wire and a staple gun, and I'm stapling chicken wire, and then I'm gluing moss into it and making a forest thing, and then we're putting our dolls on it and so forth. And then after we got that all set up as a showroom, somebody else came in and said, you know, there's this store down on Mill Street that's empty. It would be a perfect store for you. Enough said. That's where we started. 1987. 28 years later, I finally got my release. And working with my daughter, being an extra pair of hands, because there was only so much she could do, and I had to help her with that, so I did.
Wow.
I still get stopped on the street. Somebody will say, oh, hey, you're the fairy lady. What happened to the dolls? So I have to tell them, we had enough.
Our next question is, what advice would you give us teens?
I think I kind of said that, to get involved.
Yeah.
It's great the things you do here. And if you just open up your minds and think, okay, we don't want to keep it just here for ourselves. We like what we've got. What could we do that would be a focus, that we could take the things, some of our values and so forth, how could we use them in the outer world, out beyond the walls here, to make a difference? And I would point you to a couple people in the community who are people who are movers and shakers. One of my favorites is Don Baldwin, who is the retired minister up at the Methodist Church in Nevada City. He's delightful, and he's got so many good ideas, and he's such a joy to work with, and he's just a real model. And some other people like that I've met in my various organizations that I work with that are stimulating and open up in case you needed opening up. But being involved, don't close yourself in.
That's great advice.